For the last year, a senior counsel appointed by the Attorney General has been examining the case of a man executed for murder over 70 years ago to see if a posthumous pardon should be granted. Tipperary farmer Harry Gleeson was hanged in April 1941. That was just 5 months after he reported discovering the body of his neighbour, Mal McCarthy. He maintained his innocence right up to his execution, and now the Justice for Harry Gleeson group have joined forces with the Irish Innocence Project at Dublin's Griffith College to submit what they say is new evidence in the case. Barry Cummins examines the case being put forward for a pardon for a man hanged by the state almost 74 years ago.
The last thing I want to say is that...
The last thing I want to say is that I will pray tomorrow that whoever did it will be discovered.
Whoever did it, I will pray tomorrow that whoever did it will be discovered. And that the whole thing will be like an open book.
And that the whole thing will be like an open book. And that the whole thing will be like an open book.
This is the room where he was to meet his maker. This is the execution chamber.
One can only imagine what it's like to walk the scaffold even if one is guilty. But for an innocent man,
I have no confession to make.
Only
that I didn't do it.
That is all.
I will pray for you and be with you if I can.
Whenever you are fighting and battling for justice.
1940, County Tipperary. A woman is brutally murdered. Gardaí arrest a local man. Within 5 months, he is convicted and hanged. Just some of the fascinating detail from this National Archive file relating to a murder trial which happened over 70 years ago. And now the Department of Justice is considering whether to grant a posthumous pardon in this case. So, was Harry Gleeson hanged for a murder he did not commit? Near the village of New Inn, County Tipperary, I'm shown around fields that once bore witness to horrific events. 73 years ago, while walking his dogs, Harry Gleeson came across the body of his neighbour.
He put the greyhound into the house and went into John Caesar and the wife, and he said, Mal McCarthy is dead above in the field and half her face is missing.
These crime scene photographs record the terrible death suffered by Mal McCarthy. She was shot twice in the head. The first shot struck her in the side of the neck. She was already dead by the time the second shot was fired. It blew away the left side of her face, from her chin to her eye.
She was known as Foxy Moll. She had beautiful red hair. I think the reason for obliterating her face was to make her go away, was to make her vanish, and was to punish her in a particularly cruel way, in a way that befitted a woman who depended on her face.
Moll was an unmarried mother of 7. It appears there were 7 different fathers. Her unconventional lifestyle upset many local people.
She only ever went with one man at a time. She would expect that man to marry her. That's what always happened. And usually when she was approached, the men always, no doubt, in order to get her to have sex with them, made promises. And then, of course, their wives and their mothers and their sisters and their families all went, oh, no, this has got to stop.
Harry Gleeson's grandnephew Kevin says it's only in recent times that the family has been able to speak out.
Harry's brothers and sisters just chose not to speak about it. Whether they were afraid to or embarrassed, or whether they were frightened to talk about it. That was their way of dealing with it. But I suppose Ireland was different back then to it is now, and that's the way they deal with things, was to sweep them under the carpet and try and forget about them.
and the body temperature is another crucial thing.
The Justice for Harry Gleeson group have assembled various strands of new evidence which they've given to the Department of Justice. One item they highlight is a firearms register from the 1940s, which only surfaced in recent years. It was never produced at the trial, despite the judge asking for it.
Its purpose is to clearly show and account for every single piece of ammunition that would be sold in a firearm dealer's shop. It clearly shows that the firearms register was tampered with.
But the judge on 2 separate occasions says, can I have the gun register? And the prosecution barrister says, no, we don't have it and it won't show anything. So if Sean McBride, and Sean McBride was one of the lawyers, had got the gun register, it would have altered his strategy.
In addition, campaigners also have a new pathology report on time of death and evidence on the type of shotgun used, all of which they say is consistent with Harry Gleeson's innocence.
And the fourth thing, which is extraordinary, and you've looked into this, is there was a dying declaration.
After her murder, Moll's children were separated. Her eldest child, Mary, 19 years old, entered a Magdalen laundry. 5 decades later, she was approaching death in a Dublin hospital.
I was on night duty. In the middle of the night, I don't know what time, Mary got very upset, and I was trying to calm her down. And she came out with the words, I saw my own mother shot on the kitchen floor, and an innocent man died. As time went on, looking after her, I had discovered she had spent her life in convents, working in the convents, until she was too crippled and came to stay in the Royal. I think she was getting something off her chest. I think she knew that her time was limited, maybe, or I think I was a Tipperary woman and she was sending a message back to Tipperary.
She gave a dying declaration, is what we call it. Is basically when somebody's on the death or near death, when they usually speak their mind in law, they regard it as the truth, because at that stage in life they believe that the person who is about to pass over has nothing to hide and that they'll speak the honest truth.
They were her exact words. I saw my own mother shot on the kitchen floor, and then an innocent man died.
Another voice from the grave is that of Tommy Reid, who had lived and worked with Harry Gleeson.
Tonight we're here in Kilmacow, County Kilkenny, with a man that has made history.
In his latter years, Tommy Reid recorded his life story with local journalist Eamon O'Dwyer. It's being shown nationally for the first time tonight.
I'll tell you one thing about it now, that it's one of the greatest corruption cases that ever since we became a free state.
Talk to me about that beating up you got.
Until the day he died, Tommy Reid maintained he had been beaten by certain Gardaí who he said wanted him to lie about Harry Gleeson's movements, something the officers had denied.
I went into the palace breeze, washed the blood off my face, tied us outside, and the fellow that fed me wanted to see whether I imported anybody. Walked out, a rifle in his hand like that. If you don't keep your mouth shut, you get broke some night. See? Why? Because the state, the law, and the security force, and they don't want to be blamed for doing wrong. That's the way I read it anyway. I think of that every night. I went down and you an innocent man get no.
At the murder trial, the prosecution claimed Harry was in a relationship with Moll. The state suggested Harry shot Moll for fear he would be written out of his uncle's will if the relationship was discovered. Harry denied ever being in a relationship with Moll, but the jury didn't believe him and he was taken to Mountjoy to prepare to die.
My grandfather, John Timoney, was Harry's solicitor. For him to know and to be so determined in his thinking that Harry was innocent, trying to stomach that outcome and knowing that Harry was hanged for something that he didn't do must have been extremely difficult.
It's unbelievable the haste with which this was proceeded with, and gosh, it boggles the mind as to how somebody could hope to get justice within such a time frame, and such everything was so rushed, and there's not a shred of evidence against Harry that would convict him. And if it was today, Barry, it would never see the inside of a court.
These papers contain something incredible. When Harry Gleeson was found guilty, the jury made a strong recommendation to mercy. The judge said he agreed. But later on, in a clear contradiction, we read, the judge privately wrote to the Minister for Justice saying there was no reason to support the jury's recommendation to mercy.
This is the door where the condemned man was taken from. The outside that is the condemned cell. There's where he would have waited before the execution.
And then brought in?
Brought in here then, and this is the room where he was to meet his maker. This is the execution chamber. When this lever is withdrawn, this lever is pushed forward. That would be the last sound that an individual would hear in this life. He would take that sound with him. He then would be buried within the grounds of the prison. And that was all part of the punishment. The bodies would remain within the prison.
There's a number of bodies buried, just unmarked graves in a square yard. There's a bit of tarmac down, or a bit of concrete down as well, and unmarked graves, and that's hard to take too, you know, that an innocent man is there, just buried under tar.
In July of last year, the Attorney General appointed a senior counsel, Shane Murphy, to examine the new evidence in the Harry Gleeson case.
We're all involved in that process to assess.
And our understanding was that that report, one way or the other, would be issued by January. Regardless of outcome-wise, the decision seems to be taking a long period of time.
Last March, the Department of Justice told Prime Time a decision in the Harry Gleeson case was expected very shortly. But more recently, the department said Shane Murphy's work is continuing and a decision is not expected in the case for another few months. 73 years after her murder, Moll McCarthy lies forgotten by most in this old graveyard in County Tipperary. At Mountjoy, authorities don't know the exact number of executed prisoners who lie beneath the tarmac, but among them somewhere is Harry Gleeson.
You know, what stands out to me nearly the most with the whole story was Harry's last few words. And when he said that he had no hand or act or part in the murder, and he was an innocent man.
The last thing I want to say is that I will pray tomorrow that whoever did it will be discovered, and that the whole thing will be like
an open book.
Now, for the last year, a senior counsel appointed by the Attorney General has been examining the case of a man executed for murder over 70 years ago to see if a posthumous pardon should be granted. Tipperary farmer Harry Gleeson was hanged in April 1941. That was just 5 months after he reported discovering the body of his neighbour, Moll McCarthy. He maintained his innocence right up to his execution, and now the Justice for Harry Gleeson group have joined forces with the Irish Innocence Project at Dublin's Griffith College to submit what they say is new evidence in the case. Barry Cummins examines the case being put forward for a pardon for a man hanged by the state almost 74 years ago.
The last thing I want to say is that
I will pray tomorrow that whoever did it will be discovered. The whole thing will be like an
pray tomorrow that whoever did it will be discovered, and that the whole thing will be like an open book.
And that the whole thing will be like an open book.
And that the whole thing will be like an open book.
This is the room where he would